cool. Hi, everybody. I'm Dan, and well, I have so many but gods. All the stuff that he just mentioned was starting out when the dog came in. I live up in the hills, and so I'm at Temecula Valley Hospital a couple days a week, and it's a cardiologist. Uh, uh, it's a heart hospital, and so seeing the patients there, I started walking in the mornings because I see that our tickers don't work really good after we get a certain age. And so I usually have a pocket full of dog biscuits, and all the dogs on my walk just wait for me, and they all start wagging their tail. And there's cars that go by, and so like I'm always waving at the people. I'm like the greeter in the wilderness, and I'm not John the Baptist, so don't worry. But I am just so blessed. You talk about sobriety. Well, I might jump over a lot of different things. I was born in Illinois in a town called Peoria. It's right in between Chicago and St. Louis. The Illinois River runs through my hometown. I was born in 1948. And real early, my mom and dad got a divorce, and I was pretty young. And then I got a new stepdad, and they used to have beer parties at the house. And then they started going to a Baptist church. And I just got this book recently from, it's called The Grace Awakening by Chuck Swindoll. And it goes in there about the way it was back in those days. There was, don't play cards, don't go to movies, just everything, you know. And so my new stepdad got converted, but I've been in Alcoholics Anonymous for like 30 years. And there's people that don't have a program, and they get very, very angry when they quit drinking if they don't have some kind of a help to help them. And so he tried to pound God into me. When I was 5 years old, the grade school was across the alley from our house, and I had 10 minutes to get home after school. So I was in kindergarten. I hated galoshes all my life, but in Illinois, that's important equipment. And so I had my galoshes on. The whole playground was dirt, and so it rained and rained and rained. And so I was trying to get home, and my galoshes sunk down in the mud, and I was stuck. And here I am, like 5 years old. And I finally got home, and I got the belt because I was late. And that's the way everything was. If I would tell the truth, I would get beat. If I would lie, I would get beat. I was always no good. I was never going to amount to anything. And even if I had a bad thought, I was going to burn in hell. And I couldn't quit having bad thoughts. And it's the thing that happens is I never could please him. And then you end up, a side effect of that is you end up being a people pleaser because we can't be good enough. And I'm glad that Jesus was good enough. But anyway, yeah, I started drinking when I was 9 years old. And it was in the ghetto. And we'd have the dog choker chains hanging from our pockets, you know, and we're a gang. And it's just, but I just kept drinking and drinking. And so I wanted someone to like me because I didn't feel any love. I didn't hear the word love from my stepdad until I was 55 years old. That's the first time in my whole life. But being part of AA, I'll get to there in a minute. I used to take his coin collection, and I would try to I would sneak in there and just take a little bit at a time so I could buy the kids in the neighborhood candy so someone would like me. And it just, so when I was 13, he found a shortage in his coin collection. And I woke up and I had a pillow over my head, and he was suffocating me, and he was pounding my face. And if my grandmother hadn't taken me off, I don't know if I would still be here. I had knots all over my head the size of golf balls. And I just drank more and more and more. When I was in between grade school and high school, I met this beautiful, gorgeous Catholic girl. And Baptists and Catholics don't mix. I'd given her my class ring, and my folks went over there and got my class ring and forbid her to ever see me again. And that was my first love. And it's like, it was just painful. And they sent me away to this Bible college in Owatonna, Minnesota. And if you got 300 demerits there, they would kick you out. They would do take a white glove on the windowsills, and if you had dust, then that's 15 or 20 demerits. And so I was there a week and I had 150 demerits. And me and this guy from Denver, we would go underneath a bridge in town and we would smoke. And so one day we're just walking down the street and we decide we're gonna, back then they had all the beach movies and everybody was living at the beach. Annette and everybody, Funicello, was that her name? And so that's our plan. We're gonna hitchhike to Florida. So we hitchhiked to Florida, and we were there 2 hours. We went in the ocean, and one of the motorcycle cops in Daytona Beach arrested us for vagrancy. And so my pants were still wet. Well, I went to court. I had a 30-inch waist, and they gave me 38-inch waist, the jumpsuit. And so I was always just holding my pants up because they kept falling down. And I got a phone call, and I called my mom, and she said, "How's school?" And I go, "I'm not in school, I'm in jail." And so if I wouldn't have had money in the bank, they wouldn't have got me out. But I had some money in the bank, and so the police, they took me to the bus station in handcuffs, and they wouldn't take the cuffs off until I had a step inside the bus. And they took the cuffs off. Well, now everybody on the bus sees me in handcuffs, and nobody really wanted to sit by me. My pants were still wet from the ocean, and they were itching, and it was a long way back home to Illinois in a bus ride. But I got home and I moved out, and I got an apartment, and I was still 17, and we found a liquor store that they would deliver liquor. Didn't matter if you was of age or not, so all my friends would make a big list and we just partied. Well, when I was living there, and I met this lady. She was twice my age. I was 17 and she was 35. She convinced me to get married. And I was working third shift, and I went home early one night because I was sick, and my best friend was with my wife, and so that didn't work out. And so we got a divorce. And then you're talking about how many years you were married. It's more like how many times can I get married. So I turned into a bar drinker, and I was just partying all the time. I met this lady, she was following me around all the time. No matter how mean I was to her, she would follow me. And went to a house party at my friend's, and I chugged a bottle of tequila and ate the worm. And she wanted to get in an argument, and I left, and I just had a Pabst Blue Ribbon had a brewery in town, and so I had a just throwaway bottle, and I'm walking home, and these three guys jumped me, and I broke the beer bottle and had the beer bottle on this guy's throat. I also had two guns pointed at my head, and they were policemen. And they weren't very happy with me. They should have just shot me. I would have been dead if it happened today. It wasn't like it is now, though. But they handcuffed my hands to a chair, and would take turns with the slap and beating my nose to this side, and they'd beat it to this side. And they'd say, "What's your name?" And I would tell them, and then they would slap me and say, "We didn't tell you could talk." And then they'd say, "Where do you live at?" And I'm going, "I ain't talking." Bam, "We asked you a question." And they just, so it was welcome to your first felony. And I didn't understand how much that was going to affect the rest of my life. Every application to fill out is, "Are you a felon?" And you can't just shine that on. Anyway, I married that lady that was following me around, and I was working third shift still, and after 90 days, she says, "I want a divorce." She said, "This isn't," because she was working days, and so we would never see each other. And she goes, "This isn't what I thought it was going to be." And so I was drunk, and I punched her. And it's one and only time I ever hit a woman in my life. But I ended up in a mental ward because I was suicidal. And well, I used to, when I was 17, I would lay in the street and just beg for cars to run over me. And the suicidal thoughts stayed with me forever. And so I was in that ward in the hospital, and I met two cheerleaders and an airline stewardess. And this is when airline stewardess had to be certain size waist, everything. And so we all moved in together, and I married the airline stewardess. She was schizophrenic. That worked out well. We had bought a house, and then I remodeled it, and then bought another house and was working on it, and we got a divorce. And so the money that was left over there, I bought a new Bronco, I bought a new boat, and I bought a show bike that was a knucklehead, like me. But Bro mentioned knucklehead a couple weeks ago, and I go, "I know that one." So it was a show bike, and it won a bunch of awards in magazines. And so I would just running and gunning. And I met another lady where I worked at, and she had two boys, and she was down and out. And we got married. She had two boys, I adopted them, and I wanted to be a dad for them that I never had. That song we sing this morning, sometimes father isn't a good word for me, but a little bit at a time I'm getting healed from that. It made it hard for me to say our Father because it wasn't a good word for me. But God's just a little bit at a time. I'm such a work in progress, but all of us are. But anyway, so now I'm just 30, and I've been married and divorced 4 times. And it breaks your heart when you go through all that stuff. But I was a major culprit. I mean, the common denominator was me, it wasn't them. And so I just drank and drank and drank, and then I moved in. I got a 502 or a DUI, and I had to move close to where I worked at because I worked out in the country, and I needed to get a ride to work. So I moved on the route to work so I could get rides. And I didn't have a license, so there was a lady that lived close to the store. So I would ride home with her on her lunch hour, go to the grocery store, get my groceries, and then carry them into work and put them in the refrigerator in front of everybody. And it was very embarrassing, but it didn't change me any. It just caused me to drink more. And I wasn't a purebred alcoholic. Anything that I could put in me, I did it. And it's in the middle of all that, I had some people, we used to go shooting all the time. So, and then you mentioned in your story, you had the Glock 9mm. And so I used to sit in my apartment, and I always felt like I was being under surveillance. And so I would have my Glock 9 on my arm of my chair, and I'd go like, anybody's gonna bust in here any minute, and I'm not gonna be the last one hurt. And I would go like, should I shoot them or should I shoot me? And this place I moved into, the lady had lost her husband, and she was a drunk and I was a drunk. And so we just would cry in our beer. And I finally got enough guts to off myself. And like Barney on Mayberry, I had 1 slug left, and I was too drunk to pull it in. And I just couldn't do it, and I wanted to die so bad. And so I took every drug that I had, legal and illegal, and then I went to her house and cleaned out her cabinet, and I took all of her pills, and even took her hormone pills. I took everything. And I thought when I went to sleep that night, I don't have to deal with this anymore. And she said, did you do what I think you did? And I said, yeah. And she says, more power to you. And so there was no 911 call. So then I woke up the next day. And if you feel bad enough to off yourself, you really don't feel good when you feel suicide. It's not a good day. And I would still have the same stupid grin on my face. They'd say, how you doing? I'd go like, I'm all right. You know, inside I'm going like, I flunked suicide. Anyway, 6 months after that, I called a 800 helpline, and they flew me out to Tustin, California. And it was another nut ward. They issued me a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a therapist, and we had to do group therapy every hour on the hour. And when I got there, my skin was turning gray. I mumbled and I stuttered, and I was terrified of people. And it's another but God. I'm not that way now. So you was talking about the Father. Right before I came, 6 months, I wanted to off myself, and then on that I got sober in December. I went Thanksgiving, and I was going to tune my stepdad up in the backyard. I go, he's got one coming, and I didn't do anything. He wouldn't go in the backyard with me. And so I came and I got sober, and part of AA's deal is you have to make amends for people. No, I forgot this already too. Today is my mom's birthday, and bless her heart, if anyone has any children that you want them to be saved, every men's group I go, half the men that want their unsafe family to get saved. And so my mom prayed for me my whole life. And she was in heaven for a while, but I'm a Christian. And God answered her prayers, but I'll get to see her in heaven one of these days. Anyway, I got here and I got sober. I got involved in Celebrate Recovery. I was doing panels on all these different places trying to help people get sober. And a lot of people don't go along with AA, but it got me sober. And I used to go to AA meetings over there in the mornings like everybody does. And now on Saturdays I get to be a chaplain there when the community comes in, so it's another but God. In 2005, I always rode Harleys. I was on the 91 freeway. You were talking about your injury to your knee. My injury was I was in the fast lane on the 91. Does that mean I'm done? No. Okay. So I was on the fast lane on the 91 on my Harley doing 75. It was in July. It's a beautiful day and I'm just enjoying. And the drunk lady came 3 lanes over and blindsided me and ran over me and dragged me under her car 200 feet down the 91. It snapped my femur, it's flopping. It broke my back, it broke these ribs. I had 4th degree road burn, and it was just, they put me in a coma for a couple of weeks. And but the hallway was full of people. They told me from AAN, I went to the biker church called Paid in Full that was in Buena Park. And it's just amazing. Anyway, but I still didn't come to the Lord. I just figured I made it through there because I'm a Harley rider and we're really tough. Too many drugs. But anyway, I met my present wife when I got out of the hospital, and this morning I looked again to make sure that the woman at the well had, she told Jesus that he said, go get your husband. And she said, I'm not with I don't have a husband. And that was me. I was like, I'd been married 4 times and wasn't married to the person I was living with. And so she was one up me in the Bible. But I'm glad that story was in the Bible because I was so guilty of adultery. But we got a good God. So I showed Bro my picture of my wedding day, and my beard was down here. I called up the minister and I said, would you like to, well, I ended up getting a general contractor's license and I have my own business. And I kept getting sicker and sicker. I was working in Orange County, commuting back and forth, and I couldn't hold food down anymore. And I was listening to 107 one day, and I called my wife, and I said, I got convicted that we're living in sin, and can we just become celibate and I get married? And she says, sure. And but she said, you called me before I had coffee. My wife has got this rule that I can't talk to her until she gets 2 cups of coffee. And she goes, I haven't had my coffee yet. Why do you ask me something like this before coffee? But it was just, she's just a blessing. Well, I got sick and she said, we need to get married before April because she works at Costco and they got really good insurance. She says, you need to get my insurance. And so we got married in December. The next month I got diagnosed with esophageal cancer, stage 4. And I had to go on a feeding tube for a year. And I think Bill was here last week. He still got his feeding tube in, and but I came down to support him. But yeah, it would take me 18 hours a day to go through one bag of food. And they put me on morphine for a year because it tripled the pain from my motorcycle wreck. And so it was crazy. Morphine is not friendly. And I had hallucinations, and so it was just, I closed my eyes one day and I seen the ugliest demon baby that you could even imagine. And I go, and then they told me unless I had this surgery, I was going to be dead. And they found cancer in my lymph nodes. And they said, you're not a candidate for surgery no more. Pick out your funeral songs. And so I started reading the Bible at then, and this is the New Living Translation. And this was so crazy because I went from 185 pounds to 118, and you could see every bone in my body. But this is crazy how this is in Job 33. It says, where God disciplines people with pain on their sick beds, with ceaseless aching in their bones. They lose their appetite for even the most delicious food. Their flesh wastes away and their bones stick out. They are at death's door. The angels of death wait for them. But if an angel from heaven appears, a special messenger to exceed for a person and declare that he is upright, he will be gracious and say, rescue him from the grave, for I have found a ransom for his life. Then his body will become as healthy as a child's, firm and youthful again. When he prays to God, he will be accepted and will receive him with joy and restore him to good standing. He will declare to his friends, I have sinned and twisted the truth, but it was not worth it. God rescued me from the grave, and now my life is filled with light. And it was so crazy that it was like you couldn't find anything more fitting than that. But the whole but God thing, I'm so blessed. I belong to, I go to Calvary Chapel in Wine Country, the barn. I go to a men's Bible study. Well, when I got good enough, I could walk again. And then the gastrologist that found my cancer, a year and a half later, he goes, I don't know what God you're praying to, but keep praying to that one. He said, there's no sign of that cancer in there. And it was ugly. I still got a picture in a notebook of that cancer. But I started going to Calvary Chapel, and there was a firefighter there that was assistant minister, Rick Mann. And we both had just came through near-death experiences, and we bonded. And he took me under his wing, and he got me involved with men's ministry, with over 50s ministry, and I was an usher. And it was just, we're always in training. Oh, okay, you got it. I better kick it up and hit fourth gear, huh? So, yes, I was there, and God was training me, and then now I get to be a chaplain at Temecula Valley Hospital. And I understand people that's in the sick beds, and I can say, hey, I get it. I've been in enough hospital beds. And who would have thunk it? I mean, there's sometimes, I hang out in ICU. There was this one kid one day, and he was young, but he was on a ventilator, and I would pray for him. And I'm going inside, I'm going, I don't know if this is going to do any good. And I just kept praying for him for almost a couple months. And We went on vacation and I came back and his bed was empty and I'm going, oh no. And I asked the nurse, I go, did he pass? And she says, no, go upstairs and see him. He's a miracle. And I get to see things like that all the time. Who would have thought that a guy that half of his clothing said loud and proud, and now I get to sit in a hospital room with all these older people. Somebody will be 90 years old and take my hand and pour out their heart to me. And I get to be sympathetic and just show them the love of Christ, you know. Who would have thunk it, you know? But God is so amazing. And I jumped around a little bit, but I'm just so grateful. I love the but God. One more thing, I used to go to Cook's Corner all the time. And what was it, like 9 months or something like that? Some guy went in there and was shooting everybody. And my friend, he's always but God's me all the time. And he heard about the shooting, because I would have been there. I lived there almost on the weekends. And he said, but God. So I would have probably been one of the guys that got shot. And I misbehaved. I'm still learning. But God is just amazing on everything. He can take some stumbling down, puking drunk like me, and gives me a purpose in life. And so I just love you guys, and thank you for your time.